This is Aaron Rice with Maryland Climate Tech 2026, and I'm here with my good friend Tonet. And Tonet, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Okay, so my name is Tonet Ross Cuffee. I am a Dorchester County resident and relative of Harriet Ross Tubman. Proudly here to present for you guys today. Before we talk about climate change, I really need for us to understand this. So in Dorchester County, history is not just being remembered, it's actually disappearing. So I'm here today as a relative of Harriet Ross Tubman to tell you that very same land that shaped her and her legacy is slowly being washed away. And right now, as we sit here, pieces of American history are sinking beneath the water. In the next 50 years, the ground that holds some of our most sacred stories may no longer exist. And this is not just about climate change. This is about whether our history will survive this. So once again, I'm honored to have the opportunity to share with you today what it means to protect not just land, but history. So I'm a lifelong resident of Dorchester and Talbot County. I carry with me a deep connection to this land through my family, through my work, and my community. The waterways, the soil, the churches, the cabins, the farms are not just places on the map to me. They are living witnesses to survival, faith, freedom, and family. And when I say waterways, I really mean that literally. Dorchester County is defined by water. It is surrounded and shaped by Chesapeake Bay and a network of rivers, creeks, marshlands. All of that makes up the most significant watersheds here on the East Coast. The watershed that has always been a source of life for our community, but now it is also becoming a source of risk. Because sea levels rise, storms intensify, that same water is pushing further inland. It's flooding roads, it's saturating land, it is weakening the very ground beneath our homes, our landmarks, and our history. This is not just about water surrounding us anymore. It is more about water overtaking us. So, this is a cry to preserve not only land but history. Climate change is not a distant threat for our community. It is already here. And it is already reshaping our history, our housing, and our health on the Eastern Shore. In Dorchester County, rising waters, worsening storms are slowly erasing sacred sites such as Ben's Cabin and the Thompson Farm, and even the Underground Railroad Visitor Center in Church Creek. Those are not just landmarks, they are pieces of American history tied directly to the Underground Railroad, to Harriet Ross Tubman's courage, and to the freedom journeys of countless ancestors. And what we are witnessing is not happening all at once. It's slowly and quietly, but steadily happening. We have to shift how we think about climate change because it's not just about water levels. It's about memory, it is about identity, and it is about legacy. And there's a direct connection between climate change and sea level rise, watershed changes, and the loss of American history. Our shared memories are literally floating away in Dorchester County across the Eastern Shore. In the next 50 to 100 years, much of this land is projected to be underwater. And when that happens, future generations may never walk these paths. They may never touch this soil. They may never stand in the same places where freedom was once fought and prayed over. Our history is sinking. Dorchester County, Maryland is the second largest county in Maryland. It includes more than 350,000 acres of wetlands, tidal marshes, creeks, and other low-lying lands. Nearly half of the country sits 4.9 feet. sorry, nearly half of this county sits below 4.9 feet in elevation. That makes it one of the most vulnerable counties in Maryland to sea level rise. And when you combine that with the impact of surrounding watershed and risk increases, because water is not just rising from the bay, it's moving through the entire system, through the creeks, through the marshes, through the underground saturation, through storm surges that travel farther inland than they once did. The watershed is amplifying the effects of climate change. It's accelerating the land loss, and it is quietly reshaping the geography of our community. Now, with financial support and technical support from Maryland's Coast Smart community initiatives, the county has already worked on developing sea level rise reports to begin addressing the risk. However, I want to be clear. Reports do not fully capture what we are living because this is not just data for us. This is home. This is not theoretical. Through my work in the community, I have seen firsthand how climate change is impacting families now. Flooding damages homes, it creates mold, and it worsens asthma and other respiratory conditions. We are seeing increased health concerns among our elders and children. Homes that should be safe spaces are becoming health risks. Families are dealing with dampness, poor air quality, and environmental hazards like radon exposure. And it does not stop there. Local agencies, including the one I serve, have had to assist families with relocating because their homes are no longer safe to live in, not just from flooding, but from unsafe winter conditions as well. Snow, ice, heavy rain, that makes an already vulnerable home unlivable. So these conditions are made worse by saturated land and compromised infrastructure caused by the changing watershed. Water that once drained properly now lingers. Ground that once held firm is now unstable, and the homes that stood strong are now vulnerable. These are real families, these are real decisions, and these are real disruptions to people's lives. So when we talk about climate change in Dorchester County, we are not talking about the environment. We are talking about housing crisis. We are talking about public health crisis. We are talking about human crisis. There's another layer to this that is often overlooked. Displacement does not just move people physically, it disconnects them from their land, from their history, from their sense of belonging. When we lose these spaces, we lose more than buildings. We lose stories, we lose traditions, we lose cultural identity, we lose generational connection. And for those communities like ours, where history is already fragile and often underrepresented, that loss is even greater. So, preserving our history is also a form of healthcare because identity matters, belonging matters, memory matters. But even with all of this, I want to be clear again, there's still hope. We still have a few windows of time to act with proper funding, strong partnerships, and community driven solutions. We can protect some of what still remains. We may be able to elevate and reinforce historic structures. We may can create flood resistant and climate resistant housing. We can invest in healthy home improvements to reduce mold and improve air quality and reduce asthma. We may be able to preserve some of the cultural landmarks through stabilization and relocation efforts. We could document oral histories and protect sacred spaces before they are lost. Strengthen shorelines and natural barriers to reduce the impact of watershed. And we can ensure that future generations still have the opportunity to experience this history firsthand. So, because preservation is not just about the past, It's about protecting the future. And we have to act now, because if we wait, we will lose more than land. We will lose our memory, identity, and connection. Climate justice is not separate from the work we are doing. It is historical justice, housing justice, and health justice. We cannot afford to let Harriet Ross's Tubman's homeland disappear without a fight. That land made us, it shaped us, and now we are all responsible to protect it.
Yes. All right. Thank you for that. Wow, what a opening. So, I've got a couple of questions. Do you have a few minutes?
I sure do.
Okay. So in the beginning, you mentioned Ben's cabin and the Thompson farm, and of course, you and I both know what that means and where it is. But I would think that the majority of the people watching, unfortunately, um, maybe have not heard the name of Ben Ross and what that means and how he fits into the landscape and the history. Maybe you could take folks back a little bit and explain who Ben Ross was and the discovery that was made of his home site a couple of years ago.
Awesome. Okay. Well, for those of you that don't know, Ben Ross is the husband of Harriet Ross, the father of Harriet Ross Tubman, and one of the silent pioneers of the Underground Railroad. And I say that because it was a lot of his teachings that were instilled in Harriet for her to be able to navigate land and do the things that she has done, which has helped her change the thought process of America. It helped inspire, still, it still inspires. It inspires me every day. Um, but where his land is, I had the pleasure of going down there and experiencing it with one of the elders in my family and my aunt and a few cousins, along with Dr. Julie Shablitsky, uh, the Maryland archaeologist. And it is really in the middle of nowhere on Harrisville Road. We went down to the Thompson farm, and then we got on an ATV and we started riding to Ben's cabin. But on the way there were a few trees that were down. And we thought that, that was going to be it to our visit. But um, my aunt Peggy Ross, she was like, oh no, we didn't come this far not to get to the home of my great 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 grandfather, Ben Ross. So we started walking. We had to hop over those two trees, and then there was some flooding there then too. And the lane is in the middle of two creeks. So you have those two creeks, you have small slithers of grass with high stick grass that we had to navigate through. And I think we walked about a mile to get to it. Um, it was very inspirational. My aunt was playing a gospel song called Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round. And that is what pushed us to the finish line to get there, to be able to stand on the same soil where Ben's house was. There was some exposed brick there that we were able to um, touch and obtain. There were some quartz rock out there that we were able to get as well. And we were able to touch that soil. And let me tell you, sticking your bare feet in that soil, it gives you a different type of energy. And I really wish that everyone could have that same experience. It's like that was the healthiest soil I've ever seen in my life. And that is only because it is sacred land. Um, and that same soil has been able to give our flowers and vegetables another type of energy as well. But I look forward to going back there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for kind of breaking that down for people who aren't familiar, because you hear a lot about Harriet Tubman, not people not really understanding where she got both names from, because she grew up Araminta Ross, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting. You're the first person that actually said her mother's name as Harriet, which, right, most people say it as Rit, but Rit being short for Harriet, right? So
Right.
right, um, so very interesting. I was at the site last week, working with Julie Sobleski on, documenting the site and digitally reconstructing it, because as you said, in 20, 30 years, if not sooner, that site will be no longer accessible, right? We had to wear really tall boots, as I'm sure you had to wear as
Hmm.
well. And there's already water intrusion coming in. And so, we're working with the descendant community, with Julie, and helping, document that and digitally reconstructing it so that, at some point when you physically can't get there, you can, be able to get there virtually. But what was interesting is the people that we were with, I had to tell them to kind of, okay, walk towards the water a little bit because you got to get out of the frame of the camera. And so I was there by
Hmm.
myself, kind of documenting that sacred ground, as you said. It's just me and the thickets, blowing in the
Yes.
winds, and it sounds like somebody's walking up behind you, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm there by myself, right? Sounds like somebody's walking up behind you, but it's the the tall grass kind of hitting against the trees or rubbing against one another, and I felt as though I felt kind of the ancestors kind of watching me and keeping me
Energy.
safe, right? And the
Yes.
energy there and stuff like that. So it's very, like I said, it's very sacred ground, and I'm just fortunate to have the opportunity to visit that site. Um, on the Thompson farm, Dr. Thompson owned the farm, some 28,000 acres or so, or 2,800 acres, pretty expansive there on the Eastern Shore. And Dr. Julie Sableski, along with her team of the Maryland Department of Transportation, discovered this site and did some archaeology work there,
Hmm.
which was a couple of years ago. So I didn't want you to just pass over who Ben was, because that's, without Ben we have no Harriet, right? Um, and
Absolutely.
and
Without Ben or Rit.
or Rit, right? And that landscape, her being a naturalist and really understanding the landscape made the Combahee River raid possible as well. She might not have been able to speak the Gullah Geechee language, but she knew the landscape because it's very, aside from the water moccasins and the alligators, it was very similar to being on the
Too.
Blackwater here in Cambridge. So yeah. What can folks on the Western Shore do? I live in Randallstown, Maryland. Sea level rise and climate change and land subsidence aren't a thing out here. We have a lot of radon out here, but
Hmm.
it wasn't until I heard you and some other folks on the Eastern Shore kind of talk about how this sacred land is slowly sinking, to the point where, like, underwater, like the Underground Railroad is literally sinking. That's when it kind of clicked in my mind. Um, and being a real estate practitioner for the last 25 years or so, it's like the properties that I sell, lease, help clients buy, like, were a major part of the greenhouse gas problem, right? And so, that's the genesis of Maryland Climate Tech. This is why we do it,
Right.
right? Is because of what's happening on the Eastern Shore, and kind of educating people on what they can do on the Western Shore to kind of help. But from your perspective, being kind of ground zero of what we're talking about and seeing it firsthand and living it firsthand, what could kind of a typical person on the Western Shore do to assist? Is it daily habits? What's your opinion?
Definitely daily habits, recycling more, um, walking instead of driving, opting to use the public transportation because that's going to run regardless.
Hmm.
Um, just being mindful that what you do does affect others, even though you don't see it. So preserving is a major thing.
And so, what would you say, if you had to maybe narrow it down? What would you say is the number one barrier to resolving the issue, and I know you've got community members who are being displaced. What's the number one issue that you're facing when it comes to climate change in your area?
Um, the disparities of possible homelessness because of it. That's what we're seeing. We are seeing seniors um, having to move into their barns or sheds because
Mm-hmm.
the house is, yeah, it's bad because the house is deteriorating around them, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because of mold and infestations um, due to the watershed. And they're losing their property, and it's causing depression, it's causing major illnesses. And a senior 90 years old, they do not have the ability to just get up and go like you and I may be able to. Um, and they've invested their life earnings on those properties. So it causes depression rates to rise. Now, I have not heard of suicides, but I mean, the mental component is possible.
You know, um, I think I was in a room. So I was on the Eastern Shore on Wednesday, and I saw you on Wednesday. We had a meeting, and then I was at a real estate conference on Thursday in College Park, and we started. One of the panels was about the Building Energy Performance Standard, which is the most aggressive climate law in the nation that requires, all buildings in Maryland that are 35,000 square feet or more to reduce their greenhouse gas reduction or the greenhouse gases
Hmm.
by 60% by 2031 and be net zero by 2040. And again, I'm in a room full of, commercial brokers, residential real estate agents, um, and it's like there's this fight to because building owners, of course, need to pay to retrofit their buildings in order to comply with this law, and not everybody wants to do that, right? They want to keep the
Right.
status quo, and unfortunately, my industry is the least digitized, declining in productivity, and there's a strong resistance to change, unfortunately. Um, but the consensus is that this law is bad. It's forcing building owners to make retrofits to these older buildings. And we should go to Annapolis and talk to our congressmen and elected officials and create policy to stop this and terminate it from ever happening. And I'm just sitting in the room like, you guys don't really understand how this is affecting other people, especially on the Eastern Shore. And so I want to make it a point that next year when we have this conference, it's an annual conference, and because we have these panels, I want to make sure that we make a way to get you on that panel so people can understand the real effects of climate change. Because being on the Western Shore, being in these, you know, glass towers, you lose sight of kind of what's happening.
Hmm.
And so would you be open to that type of conversation to be able to educate folks that really just have no connection to what's going on?
Oh, definitely. But they also need to realize that it may not be 30 to 50 years or 50 to 100 years for them, but what they do is still going to affect generations of their bloodline to come.
That's right.
Um, because the Western Shore is not exempt.
Right.
The Chesapeake Bay, is on parts of their borders as well.
That's right.
So once the Eastern Shore goes, guess what's next?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So this was great. I'm glad that you were able to carve out some time to chat with me today. Is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you want people to know about yourself or the work that you're doing there on the Eastern Shore? It's just
See,
it's just
because
us. It's just us. It's just
I'm
us.
doing so because I'm doing so much that I really I don't realize what I'm doing until someone else brings it up. But the main thing that my family and I are doing is assisting the community and providing resources in any way, shape, or form that we can.
Hmm.
That goes from helping rehouse people to a better stable house that goes from the population that's already homeless, rehousing them, that goes to providing food to the community, that goes to providing assistance for emergency issues such as preventing evictions and utility shutoffs, providing senior programs, providing daycare, providing transportation, low cost transportation. There's a multitude of things that the Ross family, I don't just say myself because I'm never alone in that. The Ross family on Ross's branch, those are the things that we are doing over here on the Eastern Shore. We do have a few things coming up, and that will be the grand opening of North Star Village, which will house Ross Roots Collective. So look forward to seeing announcements regarding that. That store will assist our family with supporting the community in a whole nother realm. We will be able to ramp up scholarships to the youth and just do more community action, problem solving, or resource connecting.
So unpack the Ross Roots Collective, if you wouldn't mind. I definitely don't take for granted to be able to be in the same room in the same space with a Harriet Tubman Ross descendant, and I'm sure other people are like, they want to get engaged and they want to help out. Talk a little bit more about the organization and maybe how people can help donate or time, resources, volunteer, how people can get involved to support your efforts.
Uh, Volunteering, that is what we need a lot of nowadays. Um, I will shoot my numbers to you
Okay.
to post them because the
All,
store
all
is still under construction.
your contact information will magically appear on the screen, so people will be able to reach out for sure.
Awesome. So I will be able to provide that information.
Okay.
We will be launching rossroots.com website within the next few weeks. So look
Okay.
for that in the middle
Okay.
of April. We currently have the Harriet Tubman Ross Foundation, which is ran by Anthony Ross. He is a nephew of Harriet Ross Tubman as well. He's my first cousin. We do a lot of panel discussions together at different colleges and
Hmm.
schools and
Hmm.
kindness activities. We also heavily partner with the family of Frederick Douglass, Terrence Bailey, and the
Yes.
Bailey Family
Yes, because those
Foundation.
two families are very much connected. One family.
Very.
Well, great. So yeah, I encourage anyone to, like I said, there'll be a contact information and maybe a QR code on the screen. When is the retail location open there on Ray Street?
So we are projected to open mid-June.
Okay.
So it is under construction right now, and I'm just praying that we stick to that date.
Okay, great. So it'll happen in the summer. This will be on Ray Street, 426,
430,
430, 430 Ray
430B
Street.
Ray Street.
430B
We
Ray Street.
are,
Okay.
yes, we will be the store located directly in front of the Take My Hand mural of Harriet Tubman sticking her hand out.
Yep. This is all in downtown Cambridge, folks. Cambridge, Maryland, on the Eastern Shore. So we'll make sure that everybody gets the information and has your contact information as well if they want to reach out. Maybe be able to have you speak at some of their organizations as well to be able to spread the good word about what the work that you're doing. We definitely want to shine a light on it and make sure that everybody knows that the Tubman Ross descendants are extremely active on the Eastern Shore and excited to share with you the history and the stories that they have to tell as well. So with that, I want to thank you so much for making time and coming out, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.